Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. Can I get a motion to review and accept the agenda, please?
Make a motion.
Okay, Jess is making the motion, Jacob is seconding. Okay, and then were you walking on anything, Jean?
No, I'm walking off.
You're walking off, okay.
We will not need to do hot lunch rates because the federal government has kept lunch free for another year.
Okay.
So that comes off consent agenda. And I recommend that you move your policies up before the resolution tonight.
Okay. All right. Everybody okay with that? All of those that approve, please say aye, wave to me, green button.
Oh, right. You need to see me.
Yep, there you go. See, I do need to see you. Thanks, Barbara. Okay,
had
we
to
have
move
an
the
agenda. Okay, let's communications with parents, citizens, and staff. As you'll see on the agenda, we did have a Let's Talk dialogue during the last month from Mr. Merolle regarding the pre-K region, which was included in your packet. We also received another Let's Talk that we sent out today from Joanna Bar. It starts with a B. Can't think of the last name. It's here somewhere along my mess. But you should have received that as a separate email today. That was also in regards to the pre-K region. I know we have people on the call with us today. Is there anybody who wants to speak to us at this time? No? Okay, we'll move on. All right, consent agenda. So as Jean said, we are pulling off the hot lunch rates because we don't need that. Does anyone want to pull off anything before we go to vote? I would like to pull off the personnel changes and the job descriptions quickly, if that's okay with everyone. Yes, no? Yes, okay. Okay, so can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda minus the personnel changes and the job descriptions, please?
So moved. Accept consent agenda minus the personnel changes.
And job descriptions.
Okay, great. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand. Perfect, Becky, awesome. Okay, thank you. Okay, personnel changes. Can someone make a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
From Brenda, thank you. So I just wanted to ask you about all of the coaches, Jean, that are being added, it seems.
Yes.
And there's especially when we get to job descriptions, and we'll get to that in a moment, but there's we seem to be hiring all of these coaches for the central office, and I just wanted to know what we're doing.
Okay, so a coach position, currently we have a literacy coach, we have a social emotional coach who, by the way, is leaving us, Megan, and we're reconfiguring her position. So the MTSS coach is actually MTSS and SEL combined. So that actually replaces her position. So the coaching positions are RNESU centralized positions, meaning that they're not coaching at central office, but they're coaching in all the schools. They're not assigned to a school. They're covering all the schools. The academic interventionists are also hired by central office, but they are assigned to a school. So you'll see, for example, Craig Davenon is being hired by you as an academic interventionist and as an RNESU employee, but his assignment is going to be determined. It's going to be one of the schools. Whereas Joni Wisdahl is being hired as the multi-tiered system of supports coach, and it says CO because she goes to all the schools. So that's the difference. And the new position, actually the academic interventionist, the literacy coach, and the up and coming equity and engagement position that you'll hire next month, those are positions being funded by the ESSER funds for the purposes of this recovery planning. So the federal funds have given us 3 years of funding that specifically needs to target both social, emotional, and academic achievement of students in a recovery planning plan. And our plan, our data indicates that we are very concerned about students returning who have interacted very little with us this year and how we're going to support them. And so to achieve that, we're going to hire an academic interventionist, one extra academic interventionist out of central office, out of RNESU, but for every school with the federal funding. And these positions are targeted positions for 3 years. And then the data literacy coach, again, as we're building our multi-tiered system of supports program and we're providing that academic intervention, we have determined that we need that data position, somebody who can help the teachers access the data they need to know how we can best target our interventions for the students. So it's somebody, Jimmy's going to be working specifically on our SBAC and local assessment datas, the Edmentum assessment data, for example, working directly with teachers so that they're using data, making database decisions. And again, that position is targeted for these next 3 years. In a sense, it's like we have this 3-year window of money and opportunity to really make a difference in the impact of kids who did not succeed during the pandemic, who primarily disappeared on us. We really want to make sure that we're providing the extra supports, that we have the data for those supports, that we're building our multi-tiered system of supports, and that you'll be seeing one more coach position next month, which is equity and engagement. So again, the multi-tiered system of supports is also SEL, and that's replacing Megan. What we learned is that Megan did an awful lot of systems work in her role as SEL coach, and that's really what this is. It's systems of supports, both academic and SEL. Does that help? And then we
Yeah,
always
well,
hire
I
SLPs.
was curious how we were funding all of that and how we're bringing all of these people in and how we're going to use them.
Yeah.
So that's what my question was. Does anyone else have any other questions for Jean at this point on personnel changes? No? Okay.
I think it will be really important as we do the budget for next year that we always do this, but I think we particularly need to highlight for you what is federally funded and intended to be short-term, so that you don't lose sight of that over the next 3 years, because we cannot afford to move all those positions into the local budget. And my concern is that people will forget that and say, oh my God, we can't ever live without these positions again. And no, actually we can and we have to.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so all of those people who approve the personnel changes, please signify by saying aye, waving at me. Perfect. Okay, thanks. The next one, can I get a motion to approve the job descriptions, please?
So move.
Thanks, Jacob. Can I get a second? From Barbara? Okay. And so I think you've already answered my questions regarding all of the coach systems. So I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Okay, all of those that approve the job descriptions, please signify by saying aye. Okay, thank you. All right, communications and support to the board, superintendent's report.
I'm not going to take a whole lot of time on this. We always, basically the whole conversation I just told you is what I would have told you. We're working with our ESSER funds on developing summer recovery programs. Flyers went out to parents this week. Even our PreKs are having some summer opportunities for kids. And that's where all of our energy is the summer programming and making sure we have the appropriate staffing in place as kids return next fall.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we're moving on. So the next thing we're going to do is policies for action, our second reading and adoption. The first one is policy GDR. non-union support personnel terms and conditions of employment, which is revised. It was in your packet. Can I get someone to make the motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thanks, Jess. Someone want a second? Jacob is seconding it. Thank you. Discussion. I'm looking for it. Here we go.
It's like page 46, I think.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think the only real change to this policy was the amount of funding, correct, Jean?
Yeah,
So
did
we're
you
moving from
already-
$30 to 50.
did you already approve the monitoring report so fast that I missed it?
Oh, did I? Oh, I guess I skipped it.
Okay, I was just a
We'll go
little.
back to, so
confused.
we have this motion on the floor. It was hiding in there. So
Yeah.
we'll do this
Okay, okay,
policies and then we'll go back to the monitoring report. My apologies.
okay. So which policy are you on? GDR?
GDR.
So that's just, this is second reading, and
Yeah.
it's just about truing up the retirement pay on page 9 of that policy, which is page 45 and 46.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's 45 in the packet. Truing up the amount paid for unused vacation time for employees who have been here 15 years or more. Truing it up to what you're paying the union employees.
Great. Any discussion from anyone? Okay, let's vote. All of those that approve the second reading of GDR, non-union support, personnel terms and conditions of employment, please wave at me or, perfect. Okay, thank you for that. We'll go ahead and do the equity policy while we're here, and then we'll go back up and do the monitoring report. So PG policies with addition of policy 2.9 equity, which is further down in your packet. You have the whole entire policy. You have our whole entire policies in there. It is page 8 of the policies, 2.9. It's all in red.
Which is also page 59 and
60.
60.
Yeah. So can I get someone to make a motion, please? Barbara's making the motion. Second from someone? Brenda's gonna second. Thank you. Okay, discussion.
Barstow Board had a discussion about this at our previous meeting just the other night. In a previous draft, creed was used in the language. And a member had noted that there's no mention of religion in the policy. So Barstow Board actually voted to amend the policy to include religion in the second paragraph. And I would entertain the motion I would make that motion to also amend this policy to include religion somewhere in that list of categories in the second paragraph.
So who made the motion? Barbara, you made the motion. So are you willing to take that as a friendly amendment? Yes. And Brenda,
Yeah.
you seconded it. Are you also okay with that? All right. So then, okay. Anything else?
My apologies for that oversight. The different version of the policy, you had also added it in, and that ad didn't get carried over to this version of it. So my apologies for that.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Barbara.
So we were supposed to talk about this at our last OV meeting. Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay, we didn't quite get there, did we?
Nope.
Okie doke. We gonna talk about it tonight, or is that the next? What's
it's-
that?
You have a
That was
chance
the
here.
Second meeting.
Are we talking about it tonight?
No, tonight.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get there.
Lori,
Yes.
I think you need a second to the motion that Jacob made.
Brenda made do you want a second for his motion?
Right.
And then the friendly amendments? So does someone want a second? Jacob?
I'll second Jacob's.
Thank you. There we go. Thanks. Thanks, Shirley. Keeping me on the straight and narrow. Okay, so any other questions regarding this policy at this time? Okay, so let's go ahead and vote. So all those that approve the equity 2.9 with the addition of creed from Jacob. Please either wave at me or green button or whatever.
The addition of religion.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Religion and creed.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. That passes. All right, so now we're gonna go back up to the monitoring report. My apologies, Jean.
Okay.
So we need someone to make the motion to accept the monitoring report for 2.6, which is asset protection.
So moved.
Okay, Becky made the motion. Can I get a second from Jacob?
Second. Oh.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone have any questions for Jean regarding that protection of assets? Have we seen this one before from you? Is this just an update?
This is the evidence.
I know, but I mean, did we see it last year from you, 2.6, or is this the first time?
My
RNESU?
first time. I think it's your first passage.
Thanks.
Page 32 is your summary chart. That would tell us if we've seen it before. Let me see.
Oh, this is it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so no, we have not seen it before. This is the first time.
Of evidence. Yep, you saw the interpretation.
Right.
It is the same report because it's written district-wide. It's the same one that has gone to Otter Valley and to Barstow.
Yep.
And Otter Valley approved it on May 5th and Barstow on May 17th.
Okay. I'm not hearing any questions, so if you're ready to vote, all of those that accept the monitoring report for 2.6, please signify by aye or waving at me or perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are going to move on to the VSBA resolution on equity to 2021. That is on page 40 something.
It's on page 44.
44. So this was written by Bill Mathis. I guess before we talk about it, we should get a motion. So does someone want to make a motion? Barbara's going to make the motion. Anyone for a second? Jacob's going to second it. Thank you. So what I can tell you is that Bill Mathis put this together. It specifically is speaking about making sure that public dollars, I believe, stay in public schools, correct? And not into private?
Kind of. He wants to guarantee through law that the public dollars go to equal and equitable opportunities. Currently, independent schools are not bound by the same regulations as public schools. I don't think Bill would be against if independent school law changed that required them to accept any student, for example. So I don't think he's specifically saying it has to be public schools, but he says that the admissions programs and practices of any school that receives public funds should be equitable.
Okay.
And the purpose of this is it's a school board, Vermont School Board Association resolution. So your support of this just is extra support telling the School Board Association that this should be part of next year's legislative agenda.
Barbara.
Does it contain, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Does it contain a definition of equitable? Or is that where we have to circle back to equity policy to know what
It
equity
says,
means?
whereas the increasing awareness of discrimination on the basis of handicap, socioeconomic status, racial groups, school choice, or other groups raise anew the issues of equity and equality.
Okay, thank you. I do have it now.
Barbara, you just muted yourself if you were talking.
I was actually muttering to myself. I figured you didn't need to listen in. But
Any questions, any thoughts, changes?
I guess I have a question. And this kind of concerns the Barstow Board. We struggled with this at our meeting, and we could not come to a decision. And so I don't know. What I'm wondering is, as an RNESU member, are we Barstow folks
I know.
Yeah, I didn't know how to handle that either.
our quandary? And
So the difficulty Barstow is facing, to help the Otter Valley folks know, is they actually are a choice school district. So they send tuition monies, public tuition monies, to independent schools because that's what the current law says to do. So their concern was if they signed on to this, which was of interest to them, they're violating their own intention, their own signing on.
I think we're really at kind of a ethical dilemma, and
Yeah,
we're examining our own procedures and questioning what we're doing. So we're completely supportive of the spirit of this. We just maybe feel hypocritical.
I'm tabled for right now.
Pardon?
I said we're tabled for right now.
right. And RNESU cannot table. For RNESU to table it would kill it for it would make it too late to get back to VSBA. You guys are the very night before VSBA. I would say that what you're doing is you're supporting the concept of this from an SU viewpoint. I think that was an appropriate discussion for Barstow to have, but I think you have a little bit more leeway from an SU viewpoint if you wish to have a little bit more leeway, and if you wish to go on record as supporting the concept. That actually could help Barstow as they move on, as a matter of fact.
Thank you for explaining that. That helps me. And I don't want to hold that. That's it. That's the only concern I had. So.
Anyone else? No? Okay. So are you ready to vote? Okay. So all of those that approve the VSBA resolution on Equity 2021 as written, please signify by saying aye or waving at me. Perfect. It is approved. Okay. We'll let Bill Mathis know. Thank you. Okay, so we are at the next stage of our meeting, which we are going to continue from last meeting, the discussion regarding our pre-K region and action plan, and particularly our pre-K lottery pilot discussion also. But I think the first thing that we need to discuss is whether or not we are keeping our boundaries. So I need a motion on the table, and then we can discuss. Barbara? What are you making? Okay.
I'm move that we maintain the current boundaries.
Okay. Is there a second?
Is that enough to go on with as far as the motion goes?
So. Yeah.
I'll second.
Second that from, okay, so discussion. Barbara, you look
I
like.
guess this is more of a question, but at the last meeting, the program in Brandon was up in the air, whether that would continue. Do we have further incidental information we can hear about that?
We do, if I may, Lori.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the superintendent's report, I did let you know that we have heard from Brandon Child Center. They do plan to reopen. We also have heard from a new private provider within our boundaries who expects to be eligible as well, and will be one more option for parents. We're helping that provider now, making sure they have their stars and qualify. So not only do we expect to have our regular, but we expect to have one more. And then also in the report, I did give you our capacity and enrollment, knowing that this year our enrollment was low because of COVID. we had several families who did not wish to send their children out of the home this year. So you'll see a huge difference in the current year between 3-year-old programs and 4-year-old programs for that reason. So that's all in the superintendent's report.
That's on page 29 if any board members want to see it. And thank you for including that chart. I found that very helpful to understand the scope of the impact. And I added up the total number of students listed is 123. So that helps me understand how many students are potentially impacted by what we decide.
That's correct. I also need to make a correction in that. If you look at the NESUB 3-year-old program, no, 4-year-old program, it says, oh, I did make the correction. Never mind, you're good. I already made the correction.
Jean, the Brandon Child Center, last month we talked about, it was called the notes was a parent child care center. Is that the same place? Okay.
Yes. It's part of the Rutland Parent Child Care Center in Brandon.
Okay, thank you.
On that topic, a woman came in the bookstore this weekend, and she's, I don't know if she's the director of the Parent Child Center, but it was very exciting talking to her. I was very encouraged by my conversation with her, and it sounded like very promising news and very like a dynamic person behind that program. So it really made me feel very strongly about what's going on there, and that it's a great place. It's going to, they're going to get back up and moving and have some really educational enrichment opportunities there. So I was grateful for that serendipity.
I feel like we should either keep the lottery or not have boundaries. And that's because it's a little weird sometimes when I know things about programs, and so I want to be proper, right? I don't want to drag anything down, but if I were a parent and I had to choose some of the programs that are in our community, I'm not sure I would be 100% satisfied with that, and therefore that makes me feel icky about making other parents have that as a choice. And that's why I really feel like if that's what we have, it doesn't feel good to me.
Okay.
So what would be the impact? And I think this was mentioned or explained before, but just so that I'm sure I'm understanding, what would be the impact on the 4 campus programs we currently have if we voted to remove the boundaries? What would happen?
It would be a shift. You would no longer be investing in local school-based pre-K programs. Enrollment would drive the program, and as I anticipate that Whiting would remain, perhaps Caverly, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure other than that what would remain of our district programs. We'd probably limp through a year, but I think you would find that you would no longer be investing in, it would be a paradigm shift for you. So you would no longer be investing in the local programs that exist within the school buildings, unless you chose to fund it through increasing taxes.
The state money, the Act 166 would end for us.
It wouldn't end. It would, the assumption, if the enrollment drops and the money follows the kid, then you wouldn't have the money investing in the internal programs.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
I see you, Elise. I just want to hear from board members first. So
Are we just talking about the region, or can we also talk about the lottery?
we should probably take them separately, but, you know, I understand where Becky's coming from. I think that's exactly what we did last year was we kept our boundary, but we allowed for a lottery. And I'm much more comfortable, honestly, I'm much more comfortable with that than letting go of our boundary.
The thing that,
Sorry, just a minute, Brenda. Barbara?
Oh, I was going to ask for a reminder of what preschool programs are available in our like the neighboring districts, because I know of some, but I don't know if there's a lot or.
The neighboring districts don't have a boundary. And primarily the programs that parents have asked for are the Mary Johnson program in Middlebury and the Stafford Tech Center program in Rutland. Those are the primary requests that if they come in, but that's generally, there's one or two other singletons, but primarily that's what people ask for.
Brenda, you were going to say something?
I was just going to ask another point of clarification. So last year we did the lottery and for five slots. But then after all of the steps were completed, a number of the families who had asked to be in the lottery said, never mind. I changed my mind.
Came to local programs, right?
What is that about?
I'm
a little nervous about lotteries.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'll estimate. I think we had a dozen or 13 families indicate interest in the lottery, and we had 5 slots. And 2 of the chosen slots ended up deciding to come to a Rutland Northeast program instead. I don't, you know, we're asking for that decision like now over the next several weeks. And I don't know if they changed over the summer, but that ended up happening. We ended up filling the 5, but it took 7 or 8 attempts to fill the 5.
Okay.
And the way we do it especially for our new, I guess, Jacob, you're the newest, but if this board chooses to have a lottery, then notification would go out to all parents about it with an opportunity to sign up for the lottery. And then we actually drew names by Zoom so that it was quite public and literally drew names out of a coffee cup for the lottery itself. And then if somebody turned it down, we went back to the coffee cup for a name that's remaining.
I guess what I'm concerned about a little bit as far as a lottery goes is that, especially after what happened last year, people said, we want this, we want this, we want this. We offered it and they said, oh, never mind, I don't want it. And so if we're making the decision by lottery, I worry about that same thing happening again, and about the possibility that there's a family that really does want it and really does need it, and their name doesn't get drawn. I don't know, that the very method of lottery sets up the possibility that people might get it who don't really want it after all, and that people who really, really need it don't get it anyway. And
right.
so,
the only thing is if somebody does change their mind, then we open up that slot again. We kept drawing so that we filled all slots.
I have a question. With the Act 166, and you said that the money from Act 166 would follow the enrollment through the child. Do you know about what that is per child? What we look at?
It's changed each year, but it's approximately between $3,000 and $3,500 for the.
That's what I thought.
It goes to the program, not the family. So
Right.
it is intended to reduce the tuition of the program for the family.
Okay.
To subsidize.
I feel similar sentiments with Rebecca in terms of if we maintain the region, then we should provide a lottery. I read that we only budgeted for 5 slots. Are there funds somewhere where we can budget for more voucher slots, or is that not really feasible?
I believe Brenda said that we actually have 10 in the budget. She made the assumption, even though the board did not make the decision, that the existing 5, if they're 3-year-olds, would continue. Even though the board was very clear last year that you were only doing it for 1 year and you were not making promises for a second year. And then she built in 5 new. So I believe there's actually 10 in the budget.
I thought 5 of them were for Brandon, though. The budget includes the 5 for Brandon. So
But we don't have.
actually have 5.
Yes, you're right. Let me text her to confirm that, okay?
Okay. So Lisa, I know you wanted to say something, so while she's checking that out, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I first wanted to speak to a couple things that were brought up. I want to clarify that the families that are here today are not trying to close down the pre-K offerings for our neighbors in these towns. We know they are needed, and for the families that can make them work with their schedule and their jobs and their lives, they're a good option. I would challenge the idea that by dissolving the region, which by the way, RNESU is literally the only region in the entire state that is still in existence.
That's not true. There is another one.
According to the AOE's website, 2020 to 2021, there's 1 region that was listed as approved. We have a screenshot of it we could share, but the idea is that there were more, and over time there is 1. And so I spoke to the pre-K coordinator for Addison Central School District, Addison Northeast School District, and Addison Northwest School District. And she confirmed that all of those districts have their own in-house programs that are running and increasing capacity in the future. ACSD has 3 classrooms that will be going to full day next year. Addison Northeast and Addison Northwest each have 2 10-hour sessions that they're going to add full-time options for next year. So by offering freedom to residents to go to the programs that they need to meet their families' needs, they are still functioning with programs within each of their school districts while still providing that choice. You know, having talked to legislators who every year tell me Act 166 reform should be discussed, and then things like COVID hit and it falls to the bottom. We feel confident that in the future, these regions will likely not exist. I think 1 in the state tells us that every other school district is doing something different and they're making it work. We also recognize that this is a hard time to make a huge shift. And so what I'd actually like to propose tonight is that if the board wishes that the region continue, that instead of trying to dissolve the region, that you consider your voucher protocol that you've established. The last time it was updated was in 2017. And as part of that, you know, the letter from Secretary French to Superintendent Collins that came last year with approval said that approval to maintain your pre-kindergarten education region means you may limit the geographical area to the towns and locations listed. We know that. And then if a resident pre-K student is unable to access publicly funded pre-K within RNESU, the parent or guardian may still petition the school board for their child to attend a pre-qualified pre-K program outside of RNESU's approved region, and the boards have discretion to grant or deny parental requests. So we know that there are parental requests and we know that they are routinely denied, and that it's because we're asking out of convenience. And I guess we would challenge that term convenience, you know, being able to go to your job. I don't know if that's more convenience or about survival, but what I'd like to propose is that if you continue to have your region, that you're willing to grant vouchers to families that need them and request them. If we had 9 people or 8 people for 5 slots and you only ended up giving 5 lottery spots, maybe there were 7 people total who would have used them. That's not going to break the bank. And that $3,536 for next year does break the bank for some of our families. It really does. That's more than a month's income for some Vermont families right there. And so, you know, I think that we understand the need for some kind of compromise. I feel like a lottery does limit, you know, there are at least two families here today who applied for that lottery last year. They've come to these meetings year after year and did not receive that. And that has a real impact. And so by showing some more leniency, if you want to use that word, on your voucher protocol, I think that you could serve people who really need to go out of district while still maintaining the region that is important for your budget and for your the functioning of your school district. We respect that, but we really need a solution. This is literally my 4th year coming to the board and asking about this. And I think a simple compromise would be to grant some voucher requests when done in a timely fashion and allow the families that really need this to receive that funding. Okay, I've taken up a lot of time, so thank you. I appreciate your attention.
Jean, what'd you find out?
5.
5. Okay.
The other 5 were the Brandon Parent Child Center.
Okay. So is there any more discussion from board members at this time? And if not, are we ready to vote? Guy?
I just want to point out again that just a straight lottery does not get the money to the people who cannot access programming here. And so you really have 2 problems. Well, I don't know if they're problems, they're just situations, is that you have families that some want to access other programs, which they should have the right to do. If you have quality programming, which I haven't heard anything contrary to that, then you shouldn't lose a ton of families. But then you also have families that cannot access your program, and it is wrong to not give them that money. And it doesn't save you any money to not provide my family that money, because the money follows the child. And as the last 2 years will show you, my children are not going to access your program. So either way, you're not getting the money, but I'm not either. I'm paying it. So.
Jean, go ahead.
So I asked Brenda about that piece about, is it pass-through money? She says it is not pass-through money. These students are added to our equalized pupils, which takes 2 years to show up. They're only a proportionate student. So if you were to increase your lottery slots, for example, that would come out of the local taxpayer budget. And in a sense, we don't actually get the dollars that are being paid out. It actually reduces the tax rate overall. So therefore there would be an impact on the tax rate. It's not like we get the 3,500 and then we turn over the 3,500. It doesn't work that way as a pass-through. Does that make sense? So it's a tax rate impact, not a pass-through amount. It is not dollar for dollar cost neutral. I'm reading this, especially if the child would otherwise have gone to our programs.
So you said 2 years, after 2 years, so I'm a little confused on the AYP and 2 years later. So you're saying there's a 2-year delay of you?
Yeah,
When you don't get the money at all.
The amount, the way the Vermont education system works, funding system works, is we supply a child count, is what it's called. And pre-K students are like 0.46 of one position of one child. That's just how they prorate it. So we provide a child count to the state. So like this October, we provide it. That doesn't really show up in the money that comes to the district for another 2 years. The way it goes through the process. But
it's still not a loss. It's just a 2-year delay. Is that what you're saying? Because it's 2 different things. One is you have to wait for the money. One is you don't.
Let me explain this. So it's not that the money never comes to us. Actually, Brenda, our business manager, just joined on because I texted her too much. So the money, we never get the money. Our student count is what determines what our tax rate is. It's a formula basis, and that determines how much our budget cost the taxpayer. So 2 years later, these students would show up in our budget as increasing tax as, Brenda, can you help me? Brenda?
Right. There is no dollar for dollar exchange. So, and there is no special place where it says preschool grant or preschool money from the state. The preschool students that we service and or pay for are added into our equalized pupil formula. That number is then used to determine how much we spend per student, and that number is used to set our tax rate.
And so that counts for students that are not in our district but have open boundaries in their region that come to our district. Is that correct?
No, whoever pays for the student gets the benefit of that count.
So again,
So
it's not a bit of a count.
if I was to get the money to send my kids to where I need to, you would still get to count that kid, is what you're saying. They just wouldn't use the program. So then you
But
could use that spot for a student from another district, right?
No,
Potentially, but
because it's not dollar for dollar. And
it isn't dollar for dollar.
I
You do
just
not
need
get a
to
grant.
say to Lori that we are closing this meeting in 9 minutes, regardless where you are in your discussion. And you'll have to table if you haven't come to conclusion.
So at this point, I'm going to pull us back together and ask board members if they have any other questions or if they are ready to vote regarding the boundary.
I don't have any more questions, but I just want to say that as far as the equity, I can see it in two ways. And right, obviously, if we have childcare or we have universal pre-K, that's equity, but also for families who can't access it. And yeah, seems like a choice, but I will say that I worked in Middlebury, I live in Whiting, and my daughter didn't come to kindergarten in Whiting because it didn't work for me and I had to figure out something else to do. And that was years ago. And I think about that kind of stuff for families who need, want to be able to access childcare and pre-K and can't because it doesn't work for them. And that feels not so equitable. So I think it's a double-edged sword.
Well, so who made the motion? Barbara made the motion. Who seconded it? Jacob, was it you? Or was it Brenda? Who made Brenda? Brenda made the second on this motion. So my question is, because it sounds like from what I'm hearing from board members that you're worried about approving a boundary unless we know for certain that we're going to approve 5 lottery slots. So my question is do you want to amend your motion to include having the 5 lottery slots? Would that make everyone feel a little bit better? And would you?
I would be willing to make that amendment to my motion.
And I would be willing to second.
Okay. So if you're willing to make that friendly amendment, does someone have to? So since I suggested it, Charlene, do you need someone to second my request?
Could I just add something on?
What you should, what you really should do when you're amending a motion is you should vote on the amendment first and then vote on the original motion.
Okay, all right. So since we made the amendment, can I get everyone to vote on that, which is to add the 5 lottery slots? So all those in favor of doing that, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so everyone is in agreement on that. Okay, so now at this point, I'm going to ask everyone if they're ready to vote on that amended motion. Yes? Okay. So
You
all
can-
those,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Clarification. So we're voting on having a boundary with 5 pre-K lottery slots.
Yes. Yep. Okay. All right. So all of those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the motion passes. Okay. So that answers that. So we do need, so I think at this point, and I hate to put you guys off again, because I know you guys have asked for voucher requests, but because we are needing to be moving to another meeting, I think we need to adjourn this meeting at this time and then bring this back at our next meeting.
It also makes sense, Lori, that if the lottery is completed by the next meeting, then you would know if there are any voucher requests still on the table before you.
Okay, all right. So if that's okay with my board members, I would appreciate just a shake of the head or, you know, okay, perfect.
I'm sorry, but as a community member, I'd really like to discuss the number of lottery spots. I feel like 5 is extremely limiting, especially if some kids are grandfathered in from last year. That could leave.
Also, on behalf of Joanna Bagnolo, who has twins who cannot feasibly get 2 lottery spots for 2 twins.
So we have already made our decision regarding that there'll be 5 lottery slots. And as far as the pre-K lottery is concerned with those 5 slots, we will discuss the voucher requests at our next meeting. But I hear what you said.
I feel like you just slid in that 5 lottery slots to get the vote, and that feels pretty disappointing. Last year, we talked about the number for quite a bit of time. I don't think that came from anyone who was a voting member of this board. It was just to move this forward.
Well, I appreciate what you have to say. So it is 5:51. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Could I just add one thought in view of the concerns that people have?
Sure.
There's nothing to ever stop anyone at any time for appealing or asking for an appeal to the board. So if someone who didn't get in the lottery feels they have especially compelling or extenuating circumstances, they can always make that request. This doesn't
Did that 2
say,
years ago, just saying.
well, and the request can be denied. You're right. But
A request isn't going to
Has
get
it
us
ever
anywhere.
has it ever been granted, I guess is the question that I have.
I know that appeals have been made to boards and have been granted when the board agreed that it was extenuating circumstances. I can't say if a pre-K appeal has ever been granted. And on that, I make the motion to, what is it we need? A motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Okay. A second, please. Barbara. Okay. All of those in favor? Perfect. All right. We'll see you in a couple of minutes at our next meeting.